whiskey.
We need energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, cool. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Whiskey in a Hammock. I'm Eric.
And I'm Chris. And today we have a special edition because we're doing an interview with Aidan Mehigan from Natterjack Whiskey. Hey, Aidan.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Really excited. Like I said, we just learned about, Natterjack Whiskey. Just wasn't March
Whiskey
at
Riot.
the Whiskey Riot in Jacksonville.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love the brand, man. I love the way it looks. Cool logo, man.
So it was if you can see that picture behind me,
Yeah.
Hmm.
that was the original. That with the blue background was the original idea for the bottle years and years and years ago, right? Like 2014, it's 11
Okay.
years, and it was going to be called Two Fish Blue. And so, but the guy who created that piece of art is a friend of mine, Kelvin Mann. And I was like, look, I've got this plan for whiskey. It's going to be this incredible mix of bourbon techniques and Irish whiskey and all this, right?
Right.
And he said, that sounds amazing, but you can't use my art on your bottle. And I was like,
Ah,
Kelvin, come on. He's like, no, I'm an artist. Fuck off. Sorry, can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah.
So I said, right, well, look, so I can't use Two Fish Blue. So what will I do? And so we found out that there was this Irish toad. And so I said to Kelvin, the same artist, I was like, can you draw me a toad? And he said, I don't have a copy of it here, but he said, yeah, I can. I'll draw you a toad. So he drew the toad that you look at on the central bottle there.
Right.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
The great thing about that toad is it's a very Irish toad, so it can't hop, it walks, can't swim, it drowns, right? So it has all the how should we say characteristics of Ireland, but
Okay.
then also it has personality characteristics of whiskey drinkers because it's nocturnal
Ah.
and its mating call can be heard 2 kilometers away. So modern day it would drunk dial, but back in the day a crow could be heard 2 kilometers away. So
I
yeah.
have
More whiskey.
yeah, I have heard it. I actually listened to it, Natterjack. I went on Google or YouTube
Yeah.
or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And doing research on your brand and things like that. And all of a sudden I clicked on a video and there's just this crazy loud screeching thing. And I'm like, what in the hell is that? And it was, yeah, the Natterjack toad.
It's remarkable, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's kind of then it's taken on a life of its own, right? Because that while it's indigenous to Ireland, it travels around the world. So it's in like 92 other countries that it's kind of made its home, but it's not indigenous there. And that's very much like the Irish, right? You invite an Irish person to come and stay with you in Jacksonville in Florida, and there's a chance they'll stay there. They'll mate with someone, and probably in a few years' time, they'll have cousins and uncles and everyone in the.
Right.
So very, very Irish toad.
Well, and another reason we were, really excited about, talking to you and then, about Natterjack is the whole, idea, like, with the adventure.
Yeah.
The same ideas, like, that's what our brand, that's what we're about. We
Mhm.
love, like, whiskey and adventure. So the other thing I got to ask you is Natterjack a good camping whiskey?
It's an amazing camping whiskey. So just first off, from a logistics perspective, pick up the bottle, right? And get your 2 fingers and put them under the lip.
Oh, yeah, there you
There we
go.
go. Right?
Yeah.
So that's your first camping whiskey right there. You can
Right.
walk with it, right? Secondly, it's the oak flavor for me that
That's
the oak flavor for me that had the kind of what we wanted to go for was a move away from traditional Irish flavors, right?
Mhm.
But that oak flavor is a bit smoky. What he is doing is sit by a bonfire, it's a bit smoky. Now, so it's a great bonfire whiskey, but it's also a great bonfire whiskey because that one in the middle, right, is really easy drinking, right?
Well,
It is.
so it's always like we taste it while we're talking to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah, yeah. So blend one, right? We spent ages trying to craft this, and that is because if we take a step back, right? I got into drinking because drinking's great fun, right?
Right.
I didn't get into drinking to look clever in a bar, in a restaurant. I
right.
didn't get into drinking because my family have 5 generations in the alcohol industry. I got into it because you have fun with your friends when you're doing it, right? And if you're always sitting around and drinking 65-year-old Lefroy, that's about the whiskey, and it's about the
Like the heritage?
knowledge of the people, right? It's not
Mhm.
about sitting there and laughing with your mates, right? And slagging each other off and having a great time. It's about that experience. Now, I'm not saying that's not valuable. That's just not what what I associate as to having great fun with whiskey. So we think about that. I don't really want to challenge you too much. This is super daytime breakfast whiskey. Now, I've got the kids all day today, so I'm not going to join you for a whiskey. 10 a.m. drinking with 4 kids isn't an option. But
I don't know if I should go hard at it either because I got a fantasy draft this afternoon, and
oh yes, you know, more
it
important than
costs
four
me some
kids.
money, so I don't want to screw up my draft.
But if this is your best draft season, you're splitting the winnings with me, right? Because now would have informed all your decisions for the rest of the year.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll have a big Natterjack party if I win the whole thing. This is incredible.
And like the triple distillation, right, with the virgin oak, I think it's the smoothest whiskey. And I don't like the thing is, right, for years Irish whiskey stayed away from this idea of smoothness, right? Because they felt that the richness of Scotch, if you said smooth, it was a bit of a nothingy whiskey. Now, that's fine. That might be what some people think about it. But actually what I want to do is broaden the category. I want to take Irish whiskey to people who hate JMO, right? Who drank JMO in college or when they were in their teens and they were like, I know you can't really do it in the States, but people do. But if they drank JMO, they got sick on it a couple of times. And then they're like, so I don't like Irish whiskey. That's not how I bring in new drinkers. I don't do it by creating a Jameson light or anything like that. So for me, triple distillation, really approachable.
Like you said, this is not very. You cannot compare it to Jameson,
nope,
or another Irish whiskey. And what's interesting, like you said, like the process. Like you said, it's like what where like Irish meets like American techniques, like different. So you said it's Irish whiskey, but it's aged in ex-bourbon barrels, right?
Yeah.
But it's like but also like your mash bill is different too, right? Than traditional Irish whiskey.
Yeah, it is. And so traditional Irish whiskey, right? The old Irish whiskey was pot still, right? Which is oh hello. Look at that.
That's Coda.
Beautiful. So the old school Irish whiskey was pot still, right? Which has a very prescribed mash bill of 30% malted barley, 30% unmalted barley, and no more than 5% of another grain. So you could go 60, 35, 5, or but you had to do that. At least 30, and no more than 5% of another grain. That's pot still. But that's a very specific flavor profile. And so we've gone with 20% malted barley, and 80% corn for what you're drinking there. So maize and corn are effectively the same thing. They talk about it in Europe as grain and maize and all, but it's corn. It's the same as corn whiskey. So and that allowed us to put it into virgin oak. The thing about barley and malt is virgin oak, it doesn't really go that well. And you guys know this, right? Your American single malts, they're very rarely going into virgin oak barrels with high char for extended periods of time because the malted notes kind of get overrun. So the grain has the backbone to stand up to that. So that's why we went with that mash bill. Yeah.
Well, and like I said, it's interesting because he said it's what so 3 years in the like ex-bourbon casks, but then 1 year, and like I said, it's a number 4 char. So that's
4 char virgin oak.
Yeah. That's a high char.
Yeah, that's a high char.
Yeah, and from Seguin now. Yeah, now that was. Part of that was flavor driven and part of it was business driven, right? So we want to get a product to market. We started the business in 2014. You're like, right, now we're 4 years into this project. We've got loads of whiskey laid down. Like we got to take something to market. So we started to taste after about 4 years. And by 4.5 years, we're like, it is amazing having been in there for a year. And that was when we said, right, you pull it all out, let's go. And that was the kind of flavor profile. And that allowed us to bring it to market in February of 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was, look, that was incredible, right? And 2019.
That's the other thing I wanted to ask you too, is like, so like, how did you bring it to market and how did it spread so quickly? You said like, that, in 2019 that like, started to take off, obviously, COVID hit and kind of put the kibosh on a ton of things, but still like you guys came out and like you said, it's starting to go everywhere.
Yeah, and I think so. After the years of the planning process and aging, right? I was left with a load of people who loved the toad and a load of people who loved the concept of the whiskey, but they'd never tasted it. Now, I'll tell you, lads. I went to a trade show, and it, I okay. I had a half a bottle of Jameson and a half a bottle of Breckenridge Rye, and I poured them into a bottle with a toad on it, and I went to a trade show, and I said, "This is what I want to produce." I was looking for investment, and I was like, "This is where this is the future of Irish whiskey." And they're like, "Where did you distill it?" And I'm like, well, I got it from Joni's liquor store down on the corner. And they were
Right.
like, "What?" Yeah, so that's the kind of fake it till you make it aspect to this, right?
Right.
But I knew what we wanted to do, and I took it when Jordan and I. So Jordan's the master distiller at, or was the master distiller at Breckenridge. He
Hmm.
was he was the blender at Heaven's Door for Bob Dylan, and he was the
Oh wow.
distiller at
Okay.
Savage and Cook back when Savage and Cook was a thing.
And
I think it's changed hands now, but
Jordan Vi.
Jordan Vai,
Oh yeah.
exactly. So, Jordan and I knew what we wanted to do, and now your question was how do you then go from where we were in 2019 and grow it to
Yeah.
to where we are now? And you've got a big black book after those 4 years of telling lies, right? I was like, you have a load of people who you build a relationship with, and they don't think you're as much of a liar as you kind of deep down know you are. So you call them back up and you're like, actually, we've got our whiskey. Can I now come and see you with what we're producing and I can fill your order? Like we've got whiskey. And they're like, please do. So kind of 2019, I went on a kind of a mad year, right? Just pushing it. Now I went to China, I went to Japan, and I
Oh,
came,
wow.
but the kind of game changer of all, because yeah, just so that they're interesting, right? I went to China, Japan, I went to the States in that year, and they were the kind of the three markets. Now, I'll tell you about the States first, right? I
Okay.
If I go into a bar in Ireland with Natterjack, they're like, whatever, man, get out. Like you went to school around the corner, now you got a whiskey company, like fuck off, right? It's
Right.
like, what? I've got this incredible. Do you not want to try it? And then I just
Right.
leave the
Yeah, at
bar.
least taste it.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So then I went on this 5 market 10 day trip. We had a newborn baby, or 1 year old baby. So Faye was at home, and Gussie was one. And I went on this trip, right? And I did Washington, um, Portland Cocktail Week. Then we did Illinois, New Hampshire, New York, Florida, and home. So the Pacific Northwest was one market, right? So, and I came and I went into bars, and in the States, you guys, one of the most incredible things about this country is the entrepreneurial spirit that you guys have, right? You guys celebrate entrepreneurs.
Right.
It's in your DNA, right?
Hmm.
In Ireland, we're kind of big fans of solicitors and accountants, right? So people are like, as I say, they're like, fuck off with your whiskey. Whereas I went into bars and I had like, this is my whiskey. And they're like, tell me more. It's not
Yeah.
please leave. It's like, stay. I'll make you a drink with your whiskey that I think it'll go with.
Wow. Yeah.
And let's come along on the journey. And
And we get like joy from seeing other people succeed after you work so hard. That's why like shows like AGT are so popular, right? Like
exactly.
because you love to see other people succeed in something that they've worked so hard for, and there's
Yeah.
no animosity. It's just
No.
like, holy crap, look how far he's come. He's made it. It's huge,
Yeah.
So we love that stuff.
That's American DNA. Whereas, like, you go to pick a country in old world Europe, right? And you're like, I'd say if you took a new wine to Bordeaux, they'd be like, ha ha ha, get
Right.
the same thing, right? So it's kind of it's one of my favorite things about this country is that, right? And so I said to Faye on that trip, I said, we have to get to the States, right? So that's great. We came back and I was like, I did some talks with people laughing, telling them the stories about the shipment that blew up in the Panama Canal and all this sort of jazz. I'll tell you about that in a second. But then I went to China and like, I'm going to steal a Bill Hicks line here, but it, I gave a talk to 60 people and it was like I showed a dog a card trick. Like, just it doesn't translate, right?
Ah,
I'm telling stories and there's a translator beside me and she's like, oh, and then, there's a toad. And they're like, well, so what part of the distilling process is the toad in? And I was like,
Oh my
the,
God.
There's no, that's a picture. There's no toads harmed in the making. You know, it's just there's a cultural difference as to why you would have the picture of an animal on a bottle, and so there's
Right.
huge education, and so that didn't work. And Japan went on worse.
You
They
should
didn't
have
even
told them
bring
that you're using it's a poisonous toad, and you're using the
Wait.
poison and putting it in the bottles. This is like a psychedelic, man.
Or even better, like you have to lick the toad, then take a sip.
Right.
Exactly,
You got
yeah.
a bunch of Chinese people licking toads and taking shots.
right. Then we probably transcend the industry, right? And it's like,
Right.
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah. They'll have it. So
Incredible.
Well, okay, but before we move on, like, which one should we do next? Should we do the cast strength or should we do the mistake?
mistake now, yeah.
Okay.
So the mistake, right? So back when I was during COVID, right? So I came back from that trip in the US, and I was like, "Faye, we got to get there." And then COVID hits, so travel stops, right? And it killed our business. And for so many people, this is now a tale as old as time, right? We're out the other side of it and everything good. But during that period, we had 46 barrels finishing in Virgin Oak with the Char 4, right? And I was speaking to Jordan, and Jordan's like, look, the Char 4 might kill it, so why don't we take it out and we can always bottle it later and we use those barrels for something else. So I emailed the guy, and he's now dead. I didn't do anything to him, but he
Wait.
so yeah, nothing to do with forgetting in the bottle.
So like, no, those barrels went missing. You're dead. You're done. You're
You're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I'm fired. You're like, no, lock your door. So anyway, I thought it was out of the barrel, right? So we went on about trying to save the business during COVID and keep it alive and everything like that, right? But then I got a big order towards the end of COVID, and I said, "Where is the whiskey we took out of barrel in COVID?" And he's like, "Still in barrel." And there's a thing I only noticed when I was back to Ireland to start this business, right? Irish people, and this isn't necessarily a personality flaw, but it's definitely a thing. They don't do what you ask; they do what they think you want. Right? And those things, if you're an engineer, that must be a fucking disaster, because you're like,
Right.
can you build that 5 feet long? And they're like, oh, I thought actually distance was closer to 6.2. You're like, well, no, the bridge doesn't fit. This is amazing. So there's that kind of, and that helps us in kind of storytelling, but it doesn't necessarily help us in being engineers or as this became clear, whiskey blenders. Right. So we're left with this liquid, and I was like, well, you screwed me now, because I've got this order from China. It's like a full container. I need to get it in. What are we going to do? Now, we managed to source some similar whiskey. We got the order. Great, right? And we laid down more whiskey so that we could make Natterjack on blend 1. So that was fine. But then we were left with these 46 barrels. And then we just left them, right? We're like, they had an extra year in Virgin Oak, and we took them out, we put them into some steel containers, and we used the barrels for aging something else that we'll release in a few years' time, right? So Jordan and I go back to going to do the next blend, right? To Jordan and Vi, and the thing is, right, when you're making whiskey, before I got into this industry, I kind of thought it was like science, and it's not, right? It is broadly science, like there is. So at a very distilling level, right? So 20% malt, 80% corn, science, great percentages. When it comes to actually batching and making sure that your flavor profiles are the same, there's no machine that can do it, right? It's Jordan and I in a room, and we're like, right, here's the old bottle. Here's where we think the new bottle is. Where are we going to get the flavor profile the same? What can we mess around with? And there's lots of levers you can pull and that sort of stuff. So we're there anyway. The thing about it is, though, they're all factory processes. So after you get the answers, it just turns into a drinking session.
So, but how, with the used barrels, do you have to get the same used barrels each time so that the flavor profile stays the same?
No, so they're very standardized. So what happens is you get AB1, AB2, or AB3 from a specific distillery. So ours are AB1s that I think come from Elijah Craig, or they had been. Maybe they've changed now. But the point is, you get very, very similar. So they're not exactly the same, but they're very similar.
Right.
So we get AB1s. AB2s are the second use. They're still bourbon barrels, still X, and AB3s, but there's less extract in each of those. So you you couldn't make Natterjack as you've tasted it today with AB2s. You have to make it AB1s for the 3 years and then completely virgin char 4 with the last year. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, and like I said, this is very different. Like you can
This
tell,
is different.
like it's a night and day difference. Like so that 1 year, so it's just a 1 year difference, basically, right?
1 year. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now
and
it's
that's
a higher. It's also what you're tasting is 46%, so 92 proof, whereas blend one is 40%, 80 proof. So a slight alcohol difference. Now, so we're basically we finished our blending session, and Jordan's like, "What's in those containers?" And I was like, "Oh, that's the stuff that got left behind, like the stuff that we forgot about." I was like, "Let's taste it." I was like, "Amazing!" So we're in this warehouse in the middle of Ireland, right? And Jordan's like, "Are you? Whose is this? This is incredible." And I was like, "It's ours. What are we going to do with it?" And he's like, "This is the best whiskey we've ever made, bar none." So the two of us drank a rake load more of it. We're like, "Let's release it, right? Let's release it." And so we're like, "Okay, great, let's do it." So we've only 46 barrels of it. What are we going to do? And a lot of people in the organization were like, "Let's do Aidan's Founder Reserve, right? Because that's what every dickhead in the industry wants, right?
Right, of course.
Here's my genius. Did I tell you that this was always my plan? I've got this incredible thing. I dreamt about it and all that shit, right? But I was like, but that's bullshit, right? So if we take a step back, once again, I keep taking step backs, but to tell the story you've got to, right? We're honest about everything. The mash bill, the aging process, the mistakes as to how we got here, right? And I was like, so if I go now and say it's Founders Reserve, well, then the DNA of the organization changes, right? Because it's not a fucking Founders Reserve.
Right.
What it is a mistake. So we're like, let's call it a mistake. And I was like, no, I don't think so. The Irish Whiskey Association were like, yeah, that makes the industry look a little bit like unprofessional. And I was like, I'm not saying it was anyone else's mistake.
Right, it's our fault. Right.
I'm owning it. And
Yeah.
so we released it, and the 46 casks sold out almost immediately. And so what you're drinking there, so then we realized what we've got here is incredible whiskey. Let's make more of it. So that's why it's the deliberate mistake. It's
All
just,
right. So then what are you gonna are you gonna consistently call it a mistake, or now it's gonna be called something different? Because I mean, obviously, if it's that good and people love it, so are you gonna have a different name for it then going forward? So
if you look at that label on the very bottom in small letters, it says deliberate. So that yeah, that's our deliberate mistake because we're going to continue making it. Right?
It's fantastic. It really is.
Thank you.
I think I almost find more of an Irish whiskey flavor in this one than this one.
Oh, see,
I mean, they're both amazing.
Well, see, no, I think the opposite because I think because of the, I taste so much more of the barrel that I think that's more bourbony, more of that, more of the notes. It's bolder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the cast strength is gonna open your eyes a little bit more. So I'll tell you a story about that, right? When I got here to the US, I was like, I just had blend one, right? And some of the feedback, right? If you want your business to work, you've got to listen to your consumer. And a few people are like, Natterjack blend one, it's quite light. Yeah, maybe it's afternoon drinking, but like, do you have anything else? Like, I don't know if it's challenging enough. And so I was like, okay, well, with limited resources, what way do we do it? And I got to thinking, it's like, why don't we show our consumers what this comes from, right? What's in the barrel? Like, let's take them on the journey, right? And once again, so I was like, let's release a cast strength because cast strength is huge at the moment. And then we talked about it, and some of the team members were like, look, you can't, because in Irish whiskey, it's in cask at 63%, 126 proof, right? So the guys were like, well, you can't do that. Why don't you release it at 55? Bring down your price point, less tax, it's less aggressive. There's a good story. You can still tell the cast strength story. And I was like, fuck off. Like, I'm not going to sit here and have a cask strength that's actually Navy proof or whatever. Like, let's just bottle it and let the consumer decide, right? Because what was it that your man or the owner of Ford, like, what do people want? They want faster horses because people don't know what they want. I'm not here to manipulate whiskey drinkers. So I'm here to tell you a story as to why I made these decisions. You like it, you don't, right?
Yeah,
it's funny, like that nose hits you right off the, like you get obviously that heat.
It's really good. So we release it, right?
Subtle heat. And I didn't get like punch, but it's like a subtle.
The thing is, right? The triple distillation and the virgin oak, the same as in blend one, a little bit less up, but it makes it smoother. It doesn't drink like it's 126. which for the first couple of sips, where you're like, oh, it actually doesn't burn like a 126. But then when you've been drinking it for 2 hours, you're like, oh, fuck me, it hits like it's 126.
Right.
So it's a one friendly pour over a rock of ice for 40 minutes type drink. And I think that's but so we release it, right? And I'm like, we're gonna see what happens. Who knows, right? And I get this phone call, and Robert Parker was the old wine reviewer who could make or break brands, right? And this goes back to your question as to how do we get to where we are in a short space of time. So bear with me, haven't forgotten. So I get this phone call. This guy is Jim Murray's his name, and he's the yes, Jim Murray.
Yeah, Jim Murray from the Whiskey Bible, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I get a phone call from Jim Murray from a number I don't recognize, and it's like, "Hi, Aidan, it's Jim Murray." And I was like,
"Oh shit, it's Jim Murray."
No, I didn't say that. I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize, and he says, "Hi, Aidan, it's Jim Murray." And you guys are like, "Yeah, it's amazing." I didn't say it. I said, "Would you fuck off? It's Jim Murray. Why would Jim Murray be calling me?" And he's like, "It's Jim Murray." And I was like, "I'm really sorry, Jim."
That's fantastic.
Right. So so he goes, "Look, I've tasted your cask strength, and I got to tell you, it's the best Irish whiskey I've ever tasted. I absolutely love it. How did you do it?" And I was like, "It's not quantum mechanics, Jim. We open a barrel, we put it through a sieve, and we put it into the bottle." And he's like, "How are you going to replicate it?" And I was like, "Well, we probably can't." So what we did was, each year you see it as captured and bottled on the front. So I think it's the 2023 One Irish Whiskey of the Year. So
that's what this one is. Yep,
captured and bottled.
So then, just to get back to that point of how do you grow, once we got that Jim Murray award, right? Scott, who runs our global sales, he's amazing. Scott's incredible, right? And he met the owner of Total Wine and More. So I'm over here in the States, I'm pushing for chain representation, and all of the chains are like, "Sorry, who are you? What's your Nielsen data?" And all this sort of stuff, right? And you're like, "Please, can you just give me some shelf space?" And they're like, "No, because I need to take away from Jameson, who are making me a month, right? Or whoever."
Right. Real estate. Yeah. It's all about space. Yep.
Yeah. And what if I put you in all of our chain stores and you don't sell anything, right? So Irish Whiskey of the Year hits, and the guy's name is Robert Trask, I think. I'll think of his name in a second. But he's the owner of Total Wine and More. And he met Scott at this show, and he said, "Do you want to get into Total Wine?" And Scott said, "Yes." So then he put me in contact with him. He said, "I saw you won Irish Whiskey of the Year. What states do you have distribution in?" I gave him our five states. And he was like, "Okay, so those 5 states, you get distribution in Total Wine, blend one in cask strength as it was." And that changed the game, right? Because then before that, we were trying to win this battle with bartenders. And what you find is everyone's trying to win the battle with bartenders. So who wins? The people with the most money, the most boots on the ground, the most ability to reward. And so the old adage of you build your brand in the on-prem, you build your volume in the off-prem, it's kind of doesn't really matter anymore, because Jameson and Grey Goose, they know that, and they have 10 reps in Chicago. It's like, how can I compete with no reps in Chicago, right? So that changed us. The award of Jim Murray changed us overnight to what our focus was in the business. Not overnight, but we worked in about 6 months. To putting our capital into liquid to lips, in chain, and in independence, but really going after and bringing the off-prem with us, and not spending money on bar chains that we were never going to get into anyway, that were never going to remember us after the case got sold through. And so that changed our business. And once Total Wine have you, and then Specs will look at you, then Binnies will look at you, then I just, pick another. And that means that's not to say that I don't love the independents. The independents are heart and soul, and they're people who run small businesses like me. And it's like, but it allows you to get liquid to lips. And that is, for a small brand, the biggest problem. It's why Whiskey Riot is amazing. Bobby and Lexi run Whiskey Riot, right? And I called them back before we'd moved to the States, and I said, "I've got this 6-foot toad. Can I bring it to Whiskey Riot?" And Bobby's like, "Bring whatever you want, man." And that's liquid to lips, right? And it's educating, bringing people along on the journey. But there's only 6 Whiskey Riots a year. and we have to get staff there. We got to get the toad there, all those sorts of things. Whereas if we can program in Total Wine and More and get people tasting Natterjack to as many people as we can. So
Right. Well, it's funny because went to Whiskey Riot and I was just going around the house and I found something. I was like, what? And I was like, what is this? Where did this come from? And I was like, I picked it up and I was just about
ah, amazing.
right. So I picked it up and as soon as I turned it over and there's a QR code on the bottom, like it's from Natterjack. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Of course, that's very different. And he said very different than any other Irish whiskey.
Yeah, I think I was just telling Chris that this is easily my favorite Irish whiskey.
Thank you.
Yeah, easily. We've done them all pretty much.
Well, right. Like we've done reviews of plenty of other
other
brands.
Jameson, the whole thing. But
okay, amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah. Fantastic.
It's interesting. I'd the cast strength is that's what you said. You can taste the heart, and it has the heat. So like you said, for those people that want more of a punch, when you drink, like you said, over a cube, just straight, that brings the heat definitely.
Yeah.
But, this one, but like you said, the mistake, it has a ton of flavor.
So
I really enjoy that one.
It's so easy. They're all easy. Well, this one
that's not easy.
But this one, but it was so good. All the flavor profiles are there. So for me, it hit right away. The nose didn't hit hard, and then I took a drink and I was like, "Whew, yep, there it is." But then it dissipated rather quickly, and then this one I couldn't do that all day. That's not
that's a slow sipper.
Yeah, this is a slow sipper, but it's fantastic.
Yes.
This with a cigar.
Oh yeah,
in your character, game over. Yeah, and I liked the mistake a lot, and the whole line. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Do you know what the price points are?
Yeah, I do. So broadly, blend one, state dependent, 35 to 39. Yeah. Then the mistake, 44 to 49, and cast strength is like $80.
Oh,
so
still $100. Yeah, good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and because look, everyone loves value, right? Like,
of course,
from a billionaire to someone who, to who $20 is a lot of money for a bottle of whiskey, right? So whoever it is, you want value, and and everyone who starts a whiskey company would absolutely love if all their whiskeys were $150 whiskeys, but
of course.
Yeah, right. That's not how you bring people along on a journey. And so we've worked hard to keep those price points, right? Make it competitive so bars can stock it, but also so that it's like at $80, it's a gift. It's Christmas. It's not an everyday price for most people.
Right.
So, but it does mean that you're not breaking the bank to buy a whiskey lover a bottle of really good whiskey. And so,
well, right. And like I said, it hits those points for people that, that are, like you said, whiskey aficionados that want something with the higher proof, because higher proof is still still on trend, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of people like higher proof.
Yeah.
Like I said, it all depends on what it is. But like I said, it definitely brings with I wasn't expecting that. It had more heat than I thought. It was good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
I would absolutely tell anybody, if they haven't had it, get it, try it. And I don't think, I know a couple of firefighters here that like Irish whiskeys, they're Jamesons and things like that. That's what they do. Tullamore Dew and stuff like that's their picklebacks.
Oh,
right? Right?
Obviously. I love a pickle.
So I wouldn't pickleback these. I'd pickleback.
I'd pickleback blend one, and I have.
Yeah, would you?
Pickleback it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot then, because that's our thing. Or that's he got us into that.
Next video is we have to do that.
Yeah,
we have to pickleback the number one,
because that's their thing, right? Like picklebacks and whatever.
Yeah.
But I'll bring them some of this, and they'll lose their mind about it.
Amazing. Send us some pictures of you guys doing picklebacks, and
of course,
yeah,
for sure.
I've actually been to Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was stationed in England when I was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Just outside like Oxford, the Crowton Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Kind of around like Banbury, Brackley area. I don't know if
I do. Yeah, no, my wife is from Suffolk, where there's quite a few air bases. US air bases. So I don't know those ones in particular, but yeah, I do.
It was we had so much fun in Ireland. We did Dublin and we did all that, but then we really focused on getting out of Dublin and doing our own tours and just getting lost and trying to figure out our way back and like the ruins of these like the schoolhouse that we went to and it was incredible.
Well, lads, thank you for your time. Do you have any other questions for me?
No, I think did a great job answering everything we asked. Like I said, we loved learning about the brand.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's central to the enjoyment of Natterjack and loads of other brands as well that you do it while you're having an adventure, right? It's been an adventure to get the brand here. I mean, I've faced personal and business level bankruptcy on numbers of occasions, and it's
Oh
not
wow!
everyone. So it is an event. The journey's an adventure, as you guys know from starting
Oh yeah,
in Hammock, right? But the other thing is, adventure is very similar to how I want Natterjack enjoyed, which is with friends, right?
yeah.
Adventure as to you. If you're going into that kayaking place, the Boundary Waters, which before I leave this country, I will canoe in the Boundary Waters.
My mom lives on the Boundary Waters.
Oh wow, really?
Yep.
So you've done it?
No,
Okay.
I haven't. And I haven't because I moved down here because she lives in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah.
But she has a cabin on the Boundary Waters.
Oh
And I
wow.
haven't been able to get up there yet. But
Oh.
it's that's on the list for sure. Actually, we should all go together. My mom would
Now you're
love
talking.
to have us all.
Now you're talking. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So, well, listen. Good luck with your draft.
Thank
Draft.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll arrange Caitlin to get some merch, hats, t-shirts over to you, and the other fun stuff that we have, and some more of those toads. And
Awesome. Like I said,
yeah.
again, thank you, Aidan, for doing this. We appreciate it, and we'll leave you with the motto: May the wind always fill your hammock. May your glass never go dry.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I like it. It was a pleasure.
Really good fun, guys. Thank you very much.